Hello there, welcome. Today we're going to be making a tier list for all devices in Fortnite Creative. This will be in order, so the devices on the left of A tier will be better than the devices on the right of A tier. Also, this is totally my opinion. It really depends on what kind of maps you build, depending on what you will like. And before I start, I rarely ask this, but please like and subscribe. I would love that. Also, some things were not included because I didn't really feel like they fit the definition for a device, such as like the consumable scour or the chest scour. Anyways, enjoy, and I hope to see you later. And please subscribe. I would love that. All right, let's begin.
Alright, let's rank these things. Alright, player reference device. This one's quite interesting. I'm gonna be giving it A tier. It does what it says it's gonna do. Nothing more. It just says it says what it's advertised to do, and what it's advertised to do is very useful. I find I'm using this a lot more in maps now, ever since it got added, and I think it's a great device. Player reference device is amazing. It's not quite S tier, because it's not something that you literally use in every map possible. Yeah, player spawn pad. This is such a convenience. I hated setting your freaking settings for these. Actually, I'm gonna put them down in A tier because I don't think they're that good. Because just the old spawn pads, except props. But so convenient. You use them in every map, but it is so convenient that you don't have to go and sit through settings for like 50 different spawn pads. End game device. If you are a beginner at creative, this is probably going to be pretty useful. If you're beginning with devices, you don't really know how to use them, endgame device would be quite useful. But whenever you actually learn how to do things, other devices can do what the endgame device does better. The only thing the endgame device has going for it is setting endgame screens for custom callouts. Player checkpoint pad, I feel the same thing about player spawner pad, but I feel a little less attached to it. Phone booth. It's pretty situational. Like, really depends on what you're doing. You can't just plop in any map. So, but it's not quite very situational. I'm just going to put this at, kind of put it at top of C. The speaker device. This thing right here, I'm think this can be our first S. I just feel the speaker device has a lot of uses. Like, it's more like trying to make your map spicy. It's not like it's like you can use it anywhere. It's not the type of device where you just use it in one or two instances. You can use this everywhere, and you can make your map so much better just by incorporating sound into it. The radio, on the other hand, is very situational. I don't really see myself using a radio that much. Actually, I'm going to move it to C. I don't really see myself using the radio that much. I don't see much of a use for it. Explosive device. I'm gonna give this one. I'm gonna give this one a B. It has uses in 1v1 maps, especially. It still has the uses. I see it being used a bit, and for like 1v1 map resets, it's quite useful. I do wish that it can I wish that you could like restore the things that get destroyed by the explosive devices. That would be. Alright, next up, we got the damage trap. I was very split on including this into my tier, into ranking for the tier list, because I don't really know if I want to put it into the tier list. But this is going for all damage traps. These are like damage traps, the poison dart traps, those types of traps. So I feel this is a solid B tier. Has its use case if you're playing maps like death runs that need like trap baiting, but you do have barriers and damage devices that can deal damage to the player anyway, so I don't see much of a use case for these. Full damage rails. These are basically useless. I don't see a reason. These are going for full and half damage rails. They're pretty useless unless you're using them for a death run. I don't see them used like basically at all. Now, I was kind of split on putting these all together, but I didn't really. The creature manager, I'm going to put into above radio and C tier, because this can have uses if you're using a zombie map. Actually, I'm going to put this down to very situational, because this is pretty situational. The creature spawner, I'm going to put above radio, as I feel this could be pretty nice. And the creature placer, it has a maximum of 19 places on a map, and that can be quite difficult to use. So I'm going to put this down in situational, but if you have like bosses in maps, it's actually pretty nice. So I'm actually going to move this up. The sentry. The sentries are quite useful, but I don't really think they're like useful in most maps. It's more of like certain types of maps where you can see them be used. I would love to see like a more movable bot that you can like do things with. So this is kind of basic. For now, I'm gonna put this at the top of C. HUD message device. This thing, actually, I'm going to put this above speaker. HUD message devices are very useful. Get your message across. Just get your message across. You can put down anything useful for basically any type of map. It can it's a lifesaver. The map indicator device is rather useful too. I'm going to put this right down here because for certain maps it's completely useless, but for other maps this is very useful. You can like put quests on your map. You can like mark locations if you're doing a mini battle royale or anything of that. It's pretty nice. All right, Billboard, God tier, is amazing. The billboards are incredible, and I personally don't see a reason why you wouldn't use them in any of your maps. They have so much settings going for them. You can do so much with them. You can write things, do a lot. Alright, next up, scoreboard. Useless. It used to have a use, but now we have so much other devices that can do what the scoreboard does right now. And it's just completely useless now. Item spawner. Alright. Item spawner. S tier. Okay, Derpy, I will. Item spawners are rather useless. Not useless. Oh my god, useful. Alright, item spawners are really useful. Spawn items, make floor drops, do all that stuff. We're not including the trap item spawner. This is just for the prop one. And it's amazing. I use them in a lot of maps. I don't know if this is quite god tier, because there are certain maps where you really just don't need them. But it is up there. I might put it up in god tier later. Vending machine. The vending machine is quite interesting. I'm gonna put it in A tier, top of A tier. It is pretty great. Put items in it, do things like shops, and it's pretty nice, but sometimes it might not have the use case. Item granters, god tier. These things are incredible. They have a lot of use cases. They can be used for basically anything. When paired with mutator zones and other devices, they are incredibly useful. Elimination manager. Now, this thing is quite interesting. It can be used. It's quite weird. I don't know. I'm going to place this. I want to place this above Sentry, but for some reason, apparently. Oh, there you go. Alright. This is quite a weird device because I don't really use it that much, but I know it has certain use cases. It allows you to track whenever players die and send channels off that. So it can have its use. Trick tile. I use this device personally a lot. I'm going to place it at the top of B tier. This when receiving from a channel, it can destroy a wall. Nice. Can be used for a lot of things. Matchmaking portals. These things are incredible. Top of S tier. Although I can't use them, if you have a map code, if you have a supported creator code, these things are very useful. You can basically put any art into your map. You can just put art anywhere. Next up, teleporter. God tier. Above item granters. Every map I have uses them. It's just that simple. Every map I have is just amazing. Amazing. Teleport player from point A to point B. Teleport them from within a mutator zone. It is great. Actually, I'm going to put the item spawner above the matchmaking portal. I might change where the item spawner is. Pinball bumper. Very situational. Certain maps can use them, and it's very nice. Other maps, I don't know. Like, you probably won't need them in most maps. But if you have certain maps that need them, then you will enjoy this device. Speed boost. I was thinking put them with the movement modulator, but I kind of separated them. This one's incredibly situational. really depends on what kind of thing you're planning on doing with them. I don't really see too terribly much of a use for them other than giving the player a boost, and that could be pretty useful. The movement modulators, on the other hand, I'm going to give them a solid B tier. Rather nice to have on most maps. It sucks that they're a trap though, and class devices do it better. Next up, got the tracker. Alright, this one's quite interesting. I know it is incredibly useful, which is why I'm going to put it in between speaker and HUD message device in the S tier. I don't personally use them that much, but I know I use them a lot. They can display text in the top corner, add trackers, you can get rid of trackers, do things such as that. Alright. Lock device. They are very good at what they do. They do what they advertised, which is pretty fine. I put the bottom of A tier because I feel that's where I feel it is right now. But it has its use. Actually, top of B tier. No, I like the trick tile better. Alright. Well, these things have its use. But I don't really know. It has its use. It's very useful for what you want it to do. Lock doors, prevent progression. It can do all that great stuff that you want in like an adventure map. So it's going to go mid to B tier. Conditional button. I'm going to put this in between play reference and spawn pad. Conditional button is quite an interesting device. You can link, like, maybe you need like 2 bouncers to pass this door. You can do that with the conditional button. Can't really do that with much other devices other than the item spawner. So I feel it belongs to this. Also, I'm going to put item spawner up in God tier. Timed objective, straight up to the top of S tier. It is not quite enough to be God tier, but it is really, really, really useful. If you have, like, basically anything that's timing related, this timed objective thing can do it. You can display timers on everyone's screens. You can, like, start up events with this thing. You can do so much with this device. And that's why I'm putting it in S, the top of S tier. Capture item spawner. In my time of creative, I don't think I've ever used a capture item spawner. It has its uses, but I'm going to put it in very situational, because it's very situational. The capture area. I have a couple uses for these. I have used them quite a few times, but I'm going to put these above the creature spawner. But I've used them a couple times. Just not enough for me to want to put it any higher than that. Objective device gallery. You're going at the top. You're going to the God tier. Let me explain. So objective devices are very useful. They aren't just there. They aren't just for objectives. They do more than what they say they do. With the squares that can be, you can resize the squares and you can turn them into invisible barriers that are not limited to props. That are props. They are not limited to being a trap piece. So you can basically make barriers that are props, and it's really nice. That's why, main reason why they're in S tier, but I use them in almost every map, because it just has a lot of use cases. Ball spawner. Very situational. Why? I don't see a use for these. Actually, yeah, but basically useless. They're basically useless, as it says. As I say. Color changing tiles. Alright, these are very situational. If you're making one of those, like, sliding games, it can be very useful. But other than that, it doesn't really have much other use cases. But now we're going to move on to the class designer. Holy. This is a useful device. Let's look through here. And let's put it above item grandeur. Class designers. This is class designers and class selectors. Both these are combined. So useful. I use them in almost every map. It's incredible. You want a speed boost? Sure. You want to give the players items? Sure, you can do that. You want to give them health? Sure, you can do that. You can do so much with this device. It's incredible. You can even filter players depending on things like that. You can filter players depending on what class they are because of the mutators. Anyways, next up, round settings. Don't really use these that much. Maybe. Okay. Next up, team settings and inventory device. I use this a couple times. You can give players a inventory on spawn, depending on what team they are. It's used in some maps. Sometimes not as used. I'm going to put this in between explosive device and lock device. Prop-o-matic manager. Very, very situational. In all my creative time, the $2,500, I've used this thing once in one map. And that was a prop map. Basically, you can set prop time for how long it takes between prop pings and things like that. Storm devices. This is all storm devices. I'm gonna put these at the top. I'm actually gonna put these. Alright, it really depends on what kind of map you're using, but I'm gonna put them right there, bottom of S. I feel they're very useful. They have a lot of use cases, and that's why I'm putting it there. Make storm. You can make it move. You can make it random. It's just great. I use them in a lot of maps. Very helpful for a lot of fun game modes. Attribute triggers. Okay, this one's quite weird because I personally don't know how to use this device. This is the only device in the game where I don't know how to use. I really don't know how to use this device. I think it's pretty good. I'm going to put it at the top of A for now. I know it has use cases. It's just I don't know how to use it, so I don't know what to say about it. Perception trigger. It's good at what it does. I'm going to put this probably... I'm going to put this towards like the bottom of B. It has its use case, but it's good at what it does, but not much else. Random number generator. I love this device. This thing is very useful for making random numbers. What do you think? It's good at what it does and can really help for things like events and mini games. It can do like random guns, random things. Basically, it's good at a lot of things, which is why I'm putting it there. Score manager. I personally don't use these that much, but I know they have some uses. I'm going to put these bottom of A. Buttons. What do you think? It's a button. I'm actually put the teleporter at the top of S tier. Let me rearrange the order of this. And buttons are right around the middle of God tier. Alright, triggers. Well, if we're gonna, I'm not talking about triggers as in like the concept, because if we're talking about the concept, that thing is God tier. But other than like that, the use for actual triggers isn't as much. I'm gonna put these at the bottom of S, because you can use them mainly. I use them for music with sequencers. That's the main use I see with them, with sequencer devices, because and also it can work with as a replacement to mutator zones. But personally, I use mutator zones way more. Timers. These things are, well, they can help you out a bit, but I'd say they're rather situational. Because we got the new timed objectives, which are rather nice. Sequencer devices. We're putting you on God tier. It's a rather nice device. You can use them to trigger lots of things. I really can't really list anything because I can't think of anything, but it is very, very useful for at what it does. Sending channels from other channels and sending a sequence of channels on a channel. Alright, damage volume has its use cases. It's situational. It has its use case though. So let's put it, I guess, sorry, to there. I think it's more useful than a percent than those. Yeah, but yeah, I think that's my position on damage volume. Mutator zones, God tier, top God tier. My favorite device in the game. Period. This thing is amazing. You can send channels when someone enters an area. You can enable it whenever someone's in an area and cause them to send a channel on their behalf. It's just insanely useful for basically anything. You can cause teleports to happen. It is just very, very useful. And finally, the barrier. I don't really have much to say about this, but it can have its uses. It's used for what it's useful. But, yeah. After a couple changes, I'm now fully satisfied with this tier list. I moved the timer up a bunch, changed a few slots. I changed basically useless slots, and overall, I do like this tier list a lot. I agree with it. I would understand if you if you have different opinions on this, as it really depends on what kind of maps you build for which one's most useful.